Justin, do you want to enlighten us kind of on this story and situation? I know you've had your eyes on this.
Yeah, for sure. So the controversy stems basically from Sheila Johnson. She is the co-owner of the WNBA franchise, the Washington Mystics. She's also the co-founder of BET, Black Entertainment Television. So Caitlin Clark, she was named Athlete of the Year, and she did an interview with Time Magazine, and you can kind of highlight that just in terms of Time's website. But we're focusing on Sheila Johnson's comments, and she basically questioned the publication's thought process and putting Caitlin Clark on the cover of Time magazine, saying, couldn't have they put the whole WNBA on that cover, unquote. And she continues to say, when you just keep singling out one player, it creates hard feelings. And then it says also, this year something clicked with the WNBA, and it's because of the draft of players that came in. It's not just Caitlin Clark, it's Angel Reese as well. We have so much talent out there. So that's basically what drew the ire of a lot of people online. And, anytime you're talking about Caitlin Clark with a casual sports audience, you're kicking a hornet's nest of just controversy there.
Yeah. So of course this blew up, and this became, I think, in many avenues, sort of a political culture war type of thing, however you want to word that. And I guess I'm a little bit confused by the Mystics owner's comments in that this is a pretty standard thing. Justin, correct me if I'm wrong, about the Time Magazine Athlete of the Year. I don't know the history. I guess I would have to go on a search to do that, but I don't know that there is a precedent for entire leagues winning this award. So I guess my initial comment is I'm a little bit baffled by these comments, trying to be as fair as possible to this owner.
Yeah. I'm not baffled. I strongly disagree. And I think two things can be true. And I would say, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, of all the topics we've discussed in this new iteration of Hoopsology, I would say Caitlin Clark kind of garners the most comments, don't you think? At least I've seen the most polarizing comments, at least with our small corner of the podcasting world. It's been about Caitlin Clark. So anytime people criticize her, people, even though we'll wax poetic saying, hey, she's going to be a future Hall of Famer, she's this and that. One thing, if we talk about another thing in the Caitlin Clark discussion, people freak out. So, and that's different, I think, compared to like the NBA space or I think any other sport. To this person's comment, so Sheila Johnson here, I strongly disagree. I think she has been the catalyst for this league. It's fairly obvious. You look at the numbers, it's very clear. I think where her comments come from and where I think they're misguided is that she is an owner of a WNBA team, the Washington Mystics, that's going to have not garnered attention since Elena Delle Donne. She got hurt. And I think that franchise has kind of gone under the radar. And I think being an owner of this league prior to Caitlin Clark, you're struggling for relevancy. And honestly, being an owner of the league compared to when you're a player, the power dynamics, you're limited. She's an owner in this league. She's a billionaire. So you have the ability to increase popularity as well and contribute to that. And this is the first time I've seen her in any type of an interview. Like, where were you in other type of interviews? You have your own, you co-founded a television network. You have experience within media. So I don't want to hear any excuses from you on why the WNBA is lacking exposure when you have the means and connections to garner more publicity for this league. So I think where her resentment of Caitlin Clark comes from, because I sense that from her from these comments, is that she resents Caitlin Clark. And I understand where those feelings are coming from. Is that prior to her, and I would say, I'd say prior to her, there's been a lot of resentment and I would say hatred towards this league from the mainstream media. I think that's totally true. Because I brought this up many times. We've had this discussion 1,000 times, just in terms of ESPN. I think prior to this new integration of coverage, of when there's a WNBA highlight, just the male anchors just disposing of it. It's just like, I'm like, this is crazy. This sport's on your network and you're just treating it like it's trash. If you hate this league so much, get rid of it. Don't have it on there. And I think prior to Caitlin Clark, you have to wonder, what is the value proposition? I think part of it too is they're in cahoots with the NBA. It's kind of like if you have the NBA, you need to take the WNBA too, like a package deal. But I just feel overall, and I think a lot of her I guess, feelings, it makes sense. And I agree with those feelings that they are valid. And all the probably just the comments you would hear about this league and just the derogatory statements about just the league that's predominantly black, predominantly LGBTQ, just just the criticism that you have to hear day after day, it probably draws your ire. And so I understand those feelings. The problem is that it's misdirected towards the catalyst of your league. And I would say,
Yeah.
honestly, the messiah of the league, Caitlin Clark. She's not the enemy. She is an advocate for your league. Like, she's not the person to go after. You should be celebrating her. She is the catalyst to open your eyes to the other great players in this league. And she has said that in a Time Magazine interview. So I understand her feelings. Totally feel her on that, co-sign on that 100%. But to just say, hey, that sucks that Caitlin Clark's on the cover. We need to have the whole WNBA on there. That's a ridiculous statement in my mind. And instead of really focusing like those feelings of bad media coverage. And what she said earlier, I think she was correct. She talked about how, the commissioner needs to really take action in terms of the bullying and hatred that's been occurring on social media towards its players. She's 100% right. And she needs to be taking action as an owner to be proactive in that as well and working with the players. But in terms of driving up this whole controversy about Caitlin Clark, it's ridiculous to me. And I think it's kind of wasting everybody's time instead of really focusing your energy as an owner and protecting your players from bullying on social media and bullying just in real life. We talked about instances where, players were in danger of their lives earlier in the season. So I think just getting upset about Caitlin Clark on the cover is ridiculous, to say the least.
Yeah, to me, I agree with a lot of your sentiments there. It has felt like since Caitlin Clark arrived in the league and maybe even a little bit before that, it's not exactly one step forward and two steps back because the league had a landmark year for itself. So it feels a little bit to me more like one step forward and kind of like a half step back in terms of the criticism that she receives, and not even directly criticism, because I don't know that Sheila Johnson was even in this statement intending to criticize Caitlin Clark, but more just trying to make that statement about the league as a whole. But I think you mentioned, I mean, her wealth and success in her own career. I mean, I assume she has business acumen, probably more so than myself.
Huh.
But you look at Caitlin Clark as an asset in the league. You correctly pointed out the irony in that Caitlin Clark is allied with her sentiment in those comments she made in the Time magazine article. But furthermore, to try and pull back Caitlin Clark and try and control the way I feel both media and people around the league, not everyone, but a large narrative has been trying to direct what fans are rooting for or how they are rooting for it, where I don't think the WNBA is at a stage. I don't think the NBA is at a stage of this luxury with the struggles they're having. But the NBA is profitable at the moment. The WNBA is making great strides towards that. I don't think you can control or try to direct what your fans or who your fans are rooting for, as much as in an ideal world, in some people's minds, you might want to do that. Caitlin Clark is a phenomena, and people gravitate towards her, and we have the data on that. I mean, just the other day, I saw data that 25.6 of revenue of the last season is attributable directly to Caitlin Clark. You can't give a number close to that to any other player in the league. Now, it is a team sport, but that single entity, she is someone, and I think if you even go back into the 90s, and we had an interview discussing how Michael Jordan was built and how he, I believe is with Johnny Smith, right? And how he was kind of produced, had sort of handlers around him or a lot of support to drive him being the face of the league. I think with today's spread attention, as we've talked about on this show, it's more and more difficult to build an effort like that and direct fan focus on an athlete in that same way. But you do have fan focus right now on Caitlin Clark. So I guess all this to say, WNBA, I would advise, and that goes to owners, that goes to anyone involved in the league, don't fight against the wave that is leading to success and profitability. And furthermore, I think for Caitlin Clark to earn accolades is not the way that comment comes across. Her winning this accolade is a slap in the face to other players. It's not. It's a testament to your league growing in popularity and to having an outstanding player in that league. That's good for the league at large. And I know people will disagree with that point maybe, but I think if you want success for the WNBA, you should be trying to ride that wave, even if you're not rooting for Caitlin Clark to be victorious against your team or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, it's the opposite, right? It's opening doors. And
Correct.
let's just keep it real. What drives the league's popularity, what drives the NFL's popularity is casual viewers. Take a
Yep.
look at Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, a freak show fight. How many real boxing fans were watching that? To 5%, maybe. Like, as a casual viewer checking it out. Like, we're filled with casual viewers. Who watches the Super Bowl? Casual viewers. And with Caitlin Clark, she's able to captivate a very casual audience that's interested in her. And so, to me, trying to block it out and save negative comments, I think, to me, I think it's ridiculous, but I'm wondering, is it counterproductive? I don't think it is. Now, should you just be saying stuff just to say stuff? And to me, you mentioned, is it like 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back? I disagree with that. I think it's like 5 steps forward. I think the more controversy you create, people like that. I mean, take a look at our political election. I mean, who we have coming in office right now. I mean, that is very polarized. I mean, I think we can all agree he's a very polarizing person. I mean, I think that's very clear. And so, to me, I think it created a lot of buzz in terms of what's happening on social media and what's happening with our nation right now. And what creates eyeballs is not like positive stories. It is controversy, is buzz. And Caitlin Clark, for whatever reason, I don't understand it. She is controversial. I don't really understand. I think she's a phenomenal player. I love watching her play. I've watched more Indiana Fever games this year than ever in my entire life. That was due to not only Caitlin Clark and what you mentioned, Matt. She opened a door to Kelsey Mitchell, opened a door to Aaliyah Boston and the rest of that team. And, Indiana Fever was one of the most compelling teams to watch, even though they had no shot of winning the title. It was due to Caitlin Clark that led to not only myself, but others watching more of their games this season. So, to me, I think where it gets harmful is if she, this takes a toll on her if she just, decides to play overseas and just abandons the WNBA. I think that's a step where she's no longer affiliated with. But other than that, I don't know. I just feel like this is going to create more buzz as, more media attention happens. And this happens with new sports. Look at the UFC with MMA. I mean, how many, UFCs that me and you went and you watched the media coverage? They got the name of the sport wrong. They called it cockfighting. They would say all these weird things. When MMA was trying to be legalized in New York, you had legislatures, Congress people, and also there were Democrats, by the way, saying all these insane things. You would think, typically people label the Republicans as being irrational. These were Democrats saying all these insane things in New York about legalizing mixed martial arts. And so, to me, when you have a new sport and people are uneducated, you're gonna have people just saying a lot of those foolish things. And I think we've seen that with Caitlin Clark on both sides. I think, to me, the discussion of this from a casual, I get, hardcore fans and journalists that we have talked to, why they're at their wits' end. I feel them. But I think this is kind of what it takes to get popular. I mean, this would happen with the UFC. A lot of foolish takes, a lot of foolish debates. Now the UFC is part of sports culture now. It played a big part of the election, whether you like it or not. But in order to get to that point, there's a lot of foolish discussions and people saying weird things. I mean, that's just how it is in sports that are not part of the ecosystem of, male of the male sports in terms of the NBA, Major League Baseball, hockey, International Football League.
I'll agree and disagree. I think where I'll disagree is Caitlin Clark was getting ratings even before this ring taunting from Angel Reese. There were ratings coming in.
Yeah.
So I think she didn't need the polarization to get to that status. But I do agree that you're correct in saying that polarization can further catapult it. Yeah. So maybe it plays into their hands a little bit. I would definitely like to see where that goes. But yeah, agreed. We have a lot to get to. Let us know your guys' thoughts on this Caitlin Clark controversy and just how you think those owners' comments should be received and if it was maybe a misstep to give those comments.